Hi, my friends and family. My name's Trey Smith, and today I want to tell you what I feel about Buddhist Thanksgiving. Freedom in a knot. These dreams, they open up my eyes. Oh, my heart. Every moment of your life is a chance to dance inside the Christ. These dreams, they open up my eyes. Oh, my eyes, doctor, my eyes. I've seen this sick-ass world, and its moments stood unfurled. And I'm telling you, docs, it's way later than we think. What do I mean by Buddhist Thanksgiving? Freedom in a knot? As I began my channel on YouTube, before I ever started my ritual of writing long notes and reading them, for Thanksgiving Day in 2022, I shared my little Thanksgiving chant or ditty. Every day is Thanksgiving. Every night is Christmas Eve. Every day is Thanksgiving. Every day, if you be truth in you. As I have said, I consider Thanksgiving a mental attitude, a normal and essential. A mental attitude of grace or gratitude is actually the real, essential on any real spiritual path. Not faith or living in some exterior or God or gods in the sky, Quetzalcoatl, Jesus, Lucifer. Because no one's coming to save you, as I said before. Get off your knees. Humanity was the name of one of David Icke's books. Salvationism is for somebody who wants to lose in the ascension or who wants to lose in the game of awareness, because no one's going to do this for you. And they give all their faith into some gods in the sky, living in some exterior god in the sky. It is not a good idea, especially if they have no respect for us. Years earlier, as I plowed into the ancient Mahayana, for several years I studied ancient Buddhist texts and attempted to assimilate its jewelry into my third eye in my awareness of the sacred Christ. Years earlier, as I plowed into ancient Mahayana text, I missed one thing. Besides congregating, it's a lot of people doing stuff like I'm doing here, somewhat similar asceticism and meditation retreats in the forest. And in the history of this tradition, you see a lot of, or people that were not monks would often be hermits. Reminds me of a cool story I heard. Actually, this woman, I believe her name was Alexandria Neal, in the 1950s or 1960s. She actually smuggled herself into Tibet right after Tibet had gotten occupied by the Chinese communists in a really dangerous position. And I'm trying to think of the name of these the mystics that would stay in the forest. And the story was they had dreadlocks down to their feet, and they practiced the Buddhist rituals, Mahayana, but they weren't monks. And that the women were so beautiful that when they went to town, people actually thought they were in their 30s, but they were in their 70s. Of course, this was 80 years ago, but it's an interesting idea. So I miss one thing. I'll miss one thing from growing up as a Christian, besides, or a churchian, besides the congregating, and I never went to any Buddhist services. I know they exist. And that's that the Buddhists never spoke or wrote about giving thanks, which to me was one of the greatest and most beautiful things about Christianity or being raised Presbyterian. Yet it seems a real Buddhist really comes with this aura of thanksgiving. It permeates them. They seem to be very thankful. What's up with that? Well, you see, it is because Buddhism is really a spiritual science that, unless you're in one of these sick mind control, exoteric mind control cults, some of which we call the mainstream religions, it can be, even some of those, it can be taught to an open-minded person from nearly any tradition, okay? A tradition that teaches you a more proper and legitimate perspective when it comes to the great Holy Spirit. We are all already in God. So when I speak of a Buddhist Thanksgiving, what doesn't enlightened master engender separation? Do they say you have to stay 6 feet away from me? What about Amachi? She was the hugging saint. She gave around giving out hugs, going around giving people hugs. She's a sun sign Libra, oneness aware, teaching people that through hugs. We are all already in God, a part of her. Many souls still in their bodies are already in hell. Honestly, there's a small tiny fraction who are in something you would call a heavenly space on earth, and many actually in a psychological or even physical state of hell on earth. And they say there's more slaves now, if you include wage slaves and child sex slaves, there's more slaves now than there ever has been before on planet Earth. The hell on earth we call the Matrix. Thus, Buddhism, like Gnosticism and Toltec shamanism, which I studied since age 16 from Castaneda, the three main traditions I've studied and taught, all emphasize ways to escape the reincarnation death trap. Before I ever studied Wayne Bush or Isabella Green, or even David Icke, I had heard these ideas, because the Buddhists talked about, that life is illusion and the fakeness of the ego for millions of years, If you are or I don't know how long, but if you are a flesh suit trapped in a prison planet in survival beast mode, fighting against everyone. Well, the Mahayana came to from Marpa, from India, in roughly the 12th century, I believe. So that's where it began in Tibet. But if you were a flesh suit trapped in a prison planet in survival beast mode, fighting against everyone else for your little piece of the pie, fighting against everyone else to survive, just to be a fleshy automaton in hell on earth, what will happen to you when you die? I had once smear some of my doo-doo on my tent and my backpack just now. My backpack fell into my poo after I took a shit, and so it got on there. Now, do you think that I intended for that to happen? But there was somebody who was either a dead person or an archon or some kind of pathetic negative spirit. Well, this planet, some say, is full of more of them than it is us. And that's why if you're an empath, it's very natural to be depressed or feel overwhelmed. And it's natural for all of us to feel overwhelmed because both radio station 666, and if you're in a town like Santa Cruz, all the dead people are going to try to feed loose, try to knock you into shit, knock you and break your bones. And this town was a real spiritual crash course for what's happening in the second bardo for me. It's like if I didn't learn to meditate, if I didn't learn to have self-discernment, self-respect, to ignore or tell the voices telling me to do violence to myself or others or harm myself or others, you are fucking idiots. That's what I do. I tell the archons, I tell Lucifer, I tell the dead people, you're fucking morons. I feel sorry for you. You're trapped in hell. You can't do anything else. So the Buddhist always has compassion. I'm not claiming to be a Buddhist, but I've trained in it. So a Buddhist is thankful for the trap, the reincarnation death trap, and the Dharma, because they understand that everything is part of that. Everything is part of the spiritual path to a true Buddhist. Everything is part of the Dharma in the end. You see, and if you're on the Toltec path of recapitulation, on the other hand, for going back to shamanism, in the end, you realize all the suffering, every single harmful thing you did to yourself or others, all the suffering is, if you learn to change that or heal from that, it can add to your wisdom, to your awareness, to you becoming your true self, once again, escaping this hell on earth matrix. And all the Dharma gives the possibility also of escaping the prison moon matrix, Saturn moon matrix, death prison moon memory wipe prison system, and helping others to awaken or becoming what they call the Bodhisattva. Or I don't even know if that's a real idea. That idea only came about in Buddhism in my research in the last couple hundred years. So it's a beautiful idea, though. So it's a possibility that it exists, right? Right now, I'm reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So it's inspired me to get back into wanting to speak about these subjects. And so far, that it's a book. It's a trippy book because it's it's to help the student or the practitioner learn what the Buddhist believes you happen after you die. But it's also some of the parts I've been reading designed to be read to a person after they leave their body. It's basically a Buddhist shaman instruction manual to bring it all back home. I mean, it's like, because you understand, Castaneda he was an anthropology student at UCLA, but he was from Peru. He was from where ayahuasca is now legal. But he took a lot of ideas from India too, and one of the three big roles a shaman has are not going to sell tens of thousands of books in the 1970s and help you make a good living selling books. Now, Castaneda was also a master storyteller, in my opinion, and those three duties are something like midwifery, helping people when they're really sick and dying of sickness, and helping people when they're dying or after they died. So I believe that the Tibetan Book of the Dead could be said to be a Buddhist, a shamanic instruction manual for how to speak to people after they die, to help them to even escape, ideally to escape the matrix, reincarnation, death trap, but to, at least going back into a decent life. The truth is, Buddhism never had anything to do with thankfulness, Thanksgiving prayers, or getting on your knees, and even though it was one of the more watered down things they actually put in the latter forms of Buddhism, what they call supplication. I mean, with the whole guru idea. I suppose that every tradition that suffered from gurus had the suffering of egotism and narcissism on some subtle level, or sexual abuse often, or Buddhism suffered from the infusion of patriarchy. And but if you look at the original Buddhist and even the gods, Buddhist deities and enlightened masters, many of them were married and their wife is in a tantric sexual embrace on them, or some of them were actually single women. Some of the original Buddhist deities were divine feminine beings. So it didn't start out like that, The truth is, Buddhism never had anything to do with thankfulness, Thanksgiving prayers, or getting on your knees in the pure forms, because they understand the divine creator is truthfully and really in all beings. Okay? Not the bloodthirsty patriarchy in the sky. Narcissism, cults, and codependency, and even what I've loved is the DIY ethos, versus the reality of co-interdependence. Okay, well, all these different tendencies humans have of being obsessed, egoic, full of hubris, positionality, narcissism, cults, and codependency, and on the other hand, being really stuck on DIY or counterdependence. The reality is that we are all co-interdependent. We are all, as I said, any 3-year-old with healthy parents could see we all are sharing this planet, all of us. And so a while back, a couple years ago, I read a great little book found in a little free library, of course, called Thanks 1,000. And I can't remember the author's name, but you can look that title up. And you know what? We must eventually accept this truth, the truth this guy was pointing out, which is really a beautiful thing. It's hard to accept if you're an egotist or narcissist or into DIY or narcissistic collective. You think you got to do it all yourself and you're hung up on it. I love a good cup of organic cold brew coffee. Probably my only physical addiction. This book, realistically, he was going to call it Thanks a Million, but he changed that because he decided that would be way too long and too many things to have to research. But it was based on the idea, that when he goes to the store and buys a cup of coffee from Starbucks or wherever, coffee shop, how many folks would I actually have to thank for this cup of coffee to get in his hand? How many people? First he start with the barista and going back, and he went and met some farmers. I think he flew to farms in Guatemala, and it made it into a lovely little book. But it was a beautiful idea. Thanks a million. A million was probably an inaccurate number, right? So for an entire book, he researched and reached out and thanked 1,000. He found out that it was, you could say 1,000 people if you include the whole cruise. It took him to bring his coffee. It is good work. It is good to work hard, do physical labor, play hard, relax well, do your part. Yet never forget the Creator is everywhere. Okay, for every Abrahamic exoteric religions are big on anti-free will obedience, or big anti-free will obedience cults. Get on your knees and do as we say. Thou shalt not. You become full of faith. You get people get Stockholm syndrome, full of faith in the blood-drinking junior god mind control experts that created them. Buddhism, however, it's interesting. I was just reading they were talking about you will meet with the wrathful gods who drink blood after you die. So I would say they're pretty well, somewhat in some ways, if not fully, aware of the trap. It has virtually no, in my opinion, Buddhism has virtually no or very little spiritual distortion, or what we call dogma, because they learn to discern the necessity of the four immeasurables: equanimity, compassion, friendliness, and joy. In full discernment, as I said, the Dalai Lama supposedly gets up at 3 o'clock before all the other 2 hours before all the other monks wake up, after 7 or 8 hours of rest, to do insight meditation, questioning every single thought. Is that true? Is that true? Because everyone and everything is both myself or me in Lakesh. See, the Buddhists don't have this illusory idea. See, angels come in hierarchies because they're of the dark or of the controlling power grid. But the Buddhists don't have a hierarchy because they're real. So that's why I love to preach. It's one of the reasons why I love to preach the four immeasurables, because they're I resonate with them.
Anything and everyone and everything is both myself or me, or in Lakesh, as the Peruvians say, the Mayans, and also God or Creator in the form of that being, or Namaste, the divine in me honors the divine in you. And this idea that everything is also God or Creator in the form of that being is a very important distinction that I got from a book. I learned from a book called The Three Halves of Ino Moxo. And it was a book written on ayahuasca in Peru as well, in Peru. And because, it's very important to note that it's, the narcissistic person possessed with narcissistic predator entities always gets it exactly wrong. You're not the only God, and everything is here to serve you. You're a form of God in the form of you. This bird over here is the form of God in the form of that bird, in other words. Buddhism will know existence as a slave is pure suffering. Yet, if you come across a Buddhist person, or a person who's really a Buddhist, one in a red robe who is not friendly and thankful, there is a good chance they are a fake person hiding in a sect. People hide in religions and religious spiritual cults because they're lazy. They don't want to take care of themselves or whatever. They are a fake person hiding in a sect, or a narcissist pretending to be good. Studying the Buddha, I missed all the talk about giving thanks until I realized Buddhism is a spiritual science that directs you closer towards the real, naked, clear light of truth and humanity, that we are all little gods remembering how to be divine, harmless creators. We're learning, we're remembering. See, Buddhism never, ever teaches you to harm anyone else at all, because they realize how pathetic that is. You see, and as I said in other episodes, the Buddhist idea of a magic trick is called siddhis, Siddhis. And if someone knows how to do siddhis, an enlightened master say, when they start trying to do it for money, or they start trying to do it for fame or sex, they will immediately lose their siddhis. They will immediately lose their magic powers. So the balance, or the irony, and the length of the opportunity a soul has when it's in a human flesh suit is from being the most demonic, evil piece of crap, piece of shit in a free will universe, to becoming a fully enlightened master who would never ever harm anyone, because they realize it's stupid. We are all little gods remembering how to be divine, harmless creators. Fragments or rays of Christ's light. Autistic parts that can only be seen in their pure genius in togetherness, when we are together. If you're watching this and learning or expanding your awareness or becoming a better person by taking in the ideas and applying them, then I become a real person. It's like a horrible thing, like the Velveteen Rabbit, having suffered my whole life from borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, or fragments or threads of those ideas that I've had to weave out to get real. I have often wondered, is this a transpersonal reality? Like the Velveteen Rabbit. This transhumanism is going to die in its infancy. It's a horribly inverted, sick, vampiric, service to self only, self-possessed, luciferic, garbage idea. However, transpersonalism, or the idea that I exist because of, like Christ said, when two or more are gathered in my name, I am there, is to me a philosophy that has obvious truth and merit. Not that it's 100%, like I exist somewhat on my own. I could exist or survive Nah, but it's not, Where does the desire for music, where does music come from? See, with transpersonal reality, in other words, I have to have someone to play the music for, right? So I think there's a lot of validity in that idea. Like I say, the divine creator allowed duality and all these different souls and fragments and free will to expand, or ideally to expand to love and awareness, right? So we are all little gods remembering how to be divine, harmless creators, fragments or rays of Christ's light, autistic parts that can only be seen in their pure genius when we are together, admitting somehow, and this is why so many star seeds and indigo children and empaths and people that were on a mission here to bring the fifth dimension back, the oneness, the sacred Christ frequency back for the real second coming of Christ, have been targeted and tried to be destroyed, abused, killed, drugged, all that. Because they don't, the dark side that runs the media and the controls the school system and the medical mafia, they don't want that, right? So admitting and thus admitting somehow we all agreed to reincarnate in these dark, moist, warm flesh suits with bleeding hearts, minds, and organs, sexuality, incarnating within these divine Namulu flesh suits, knowing the truth that the unhybridized, before Lucifer unplugged our DNA, before humans 2.0, these things in their organic pure state are the highest, as many people have said online, the highest technology is this. That's why I have to say that the dark side are brilliant at mind control and invisible weaponry, because they've done such a great job at getting the majority to not even realize most of the stuff I say is not crazy, because they're so mind controlled, right? So these divine Namulu flesh suit avatars, as they're called by others, have been denigrated into selfish little separate portions of the body of God until we wake up. Little sick, narcissistic, psychopath, luciferic ego trips who don't even realize that we're all the same shit, telling each other what to do, pushing each other around with the rent and the property tax and the hourly wage slave jobs and the control structure of the matrix and the hexagram on the end of Saturn beaming into these millions of people's heads still in 2024. You got to pay rent. The point of life is the box. Pay for the box. Pay for the box. Pay for the box. Ad nauseum, in infinitum, as long as people the majority keep doing this, right? Until we wake up. Buddhists long ago realized that, you know what? The obvious truth is that you did not tie the knot and accept the old ball and chain to be married permanently to that one soul or spirit fragment in that one person's body, to that one individual. Guess what? We are all permanently tied to each other and the earth. As long as we're in these bodies, especially, all of our deeds, words, and even thoughts are all tied to one great big gordian knot. I mean, sure, some souls can become enlightened, reach nirvana, escape the matrix death trap, forced memory wipe reincarnations, soul-sucking loose harvest drip system. But they are very advanced souls. The corporate partners and the CIA censors at YouTube think that they get to decide how many people see my videos. They get to decide my audience and the number of views I get. They get to determine my range of influence. How narcissistic, How egoic, how luciferic, how separatistic can you be than to say, oh, this is a public thing we're going to give to the world, but we get to say and filter how many people get to see what things. We get to say who's popular and who is not. Well, that's how threatening it is. That's how, I'm sure they had to, were coerced into it with large bribes, as well as maybe even death threats from the big boys who, are behind the top of the pyramid schemes, right? So, but guess what, folks? I get to tell the CIA what to do as well. Because it's really, if we're going to be real about it, it's really, actually, still, we the people. The people actually control all government organizations, all bureaus of all of the government. If we're going to be real and say in the future, if we don't want to be destroyed by the dark side, then we're going to have white hats, so to speak, in every single room, every single group, every single branch of the government, not just the Navy. All branches, not just a few senators and a few governors. Because in that way, then you're going to see the end of war. But see, just like after death, Lucifer and company and all the people that obey them believe they, or at least at the top of the hierarchies, they get to choose through coercion, guilt, bribery, and placation. They get to choose our influence and terrify you back into the hell matrix. Narcissists see it all in ass backwards formation. They think they're the one and only God, and everything else is a part of them, here to serve them, an object here for them. And every person who has NPD, watch them when they're upset. Or every person who's narcissistic, if you want to know if they have NPD, watch them when they're really upset. It's all about them, right? So that's when you know. Especially if they start acting like a demon and have no empathy at all. Yet the Dark Lords have no powers they didn't steal. Okay? That's the reality. Sean Bond said that, and it's completely accurate. And no real control over the awakened ones. The more awakened you are, the less they can control you. Because you know what? You don't need a fucker in a black robe who is, into doing whatever. You name the crime and then locking other people up for it. You don't need that kind of insanity. Okay? So you're not going to harm anyone else. If you're an awakened soul, this is the only crime you're going to do. Camping, maybe. You're not going to do crimes. Okay? You don't need criminals' justice system if you're not a criminal. If you're awakened, you don't want criminals to tell you what to do. You stay away from them because you don't need Lucifer if you are over the 3D. If you're to the 5th or 6th dimension, 7th dimension, even some in the 4th dimension don't need him very much. And so again, on the good side, I have to say thank you to YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble for allowing me to move into the 4th dimension a little bit here, getting bilocational. I'm really thankful for that. But the dark are going to try to say, this is ours, your body, this planet, it's ours, your afterlife, your next life, it's all ours, it's for us. They're not going to give up on this. This has been going on for millions of years, folks. This is just the peak of it. For like it or not, truthfully and in reality, we are all one. And until 51% of existence transcends suffering, 51% of humanity realizes that we are really all one, and this planet is one thing. These human bodies are just like their nerve endings or the electrons of it that get to shoot around and make the choices, which is amazing. But until over half this planet transcends the suffering all the time of the matrix hell on earth prison planet system, humanity will have to learn the reality of Buddhist Thanksgiving. They're going to have to learn, man. They're going to have to learn to be thankful for the hard stuff, to be thankful for the horrific things we're going to see happening in the next couple of years. And it's just David Standoff Ralph. He became a Catholic priest in the middle of Warsaw in Poland, and he was in Poland, and stuff was blowing up around him, and he became born again in the middle of that. And I saw an interview with him in the Common Ground magazine when he was like 91. He's still around, and he's like 100 now, and he looked about 61, and I could actually see the thankfulness in his eyes. I could see the thanksgiving and the beaming awareness of Christ around his head. And he was founded in the war. So it is only because we refuse to be real with the Creator, we refuse to stop harming ourselves and others, that it has to get this bad. Because that's a lot of human souls have to learn the hardest ways, man. It gets to rock bottom before they wake the flunk up. So in the end, we're going to have to be thankful for all of the knots. You know, in the Buddhist reality of Thanksgiving, there's a symbol called the Gordian knot, and it's an endless knot. It's a beautiful symbol, but it's also an endless knot. And this is similar to how the oneness is with humanity. You can't escape it. We're going to have to be thankful for all the knots and the freedom, from Lucifer, Klaus Schwab, and Bill Gates, to your mother, Yeshua, the Christ, Sophia, slavery, and the liberation of the soul into full awareness. Everything. Do your best to awaken, yet know that perfectionism is a big trap that I fell into for years. That's why I didn't make any videos all those years. I thought they had to be perfect. And a tool for death. If you refuse to begin till you have all of the resources, or till it's perfect, if you refuse to share your gifts or your awareness or your information till it's perfect, you're falling into a trap and a tool for death and the fallen, or the dark side. This is how they condition us. They try to make us compete against everyone else on YouTube, or everyone else in whatever your profession or your schooling, and make you believe you have to compete against everyone else for that house. Well, you know how when the actual times when I got in legal boxes and legal places, camps to stay that were legal in this town, with their insane-ass, fake-ass housing contest, overblown fake housing contest? It was through friends. It was through intuition. Through hitchhiking. I've got a few housing situations. Through hitchhiking. Through having the faith to stick out my thumb. That's how I got legal housing in this part of the world, where this insane fake-ass contest goes on. I've gotten to be myself as a one-man band, and through giving away the wisdom, you know, it's not by doing what you're told that you get to live your blueprint. But if you can figure out, while you still need to earn money in a capitalist system, how to do it with money, then more power to you, you know. We must continue the dialogue of dogma-less thanksgiving and joy, like these birds. Because it is only through having dogma-less dialogues of expansion and awareness and learning in a way that's not in a tyrant's control trip or a Luciferic cult that we can discern the real spiritual reality. For the amazing gifts of life and the vast gifts of spiritual growth the dark ones give us. Like, say, in 2020, so many people had awakenings, being forced to be staying at home, or even having their businesses destroyed, and even having their friends and parents dying of the experiments. So many people had expanded and learned what's really happening, and myself included, getting a passion for disclosure and exopolitical awareness and truth. Expansive passion for truth. Every time they killed a martyr for sharing the oneness, it grew people's passion to learn and to get back to an era of human oneness. Because, as I've said before, we can't grow in so-called heaven. If we're all in a blissing out in an easy place where there's no problems, we can't really have any growth. It could be very painful to be spoiled and have no growth. You know, the dark ones give us growth that we could never have learned on the other side. Okay? So we should be thankful for that. As horrific and painful and fucking filthy and tragic as it is that beings could think that they're going to take over this planet and be that fucking spiritually moronic and retarded and have most of the humanity follow them, we should still be thankful for that. Because all of these things could lead to real awakening, the real era of light. Faster. Because we are all tied in a big Gordian Buddhist knot. Both ugly and beautiful. We are truly one with it all in the spirit, like it or not. If I don't take care of those shadow parts of myself that need healing, then I'll never be able to help you with that. Whereas those things I've already done to heal myself, then I can share that. You see? Because it's all a hologramic reflection of the original divine creator, who is an amazing psychedelic being that gave us free will. Okay? And we're all tied into this, we're all connected to this planet, obviously. So in the spirit, we are all one on this planet and in spirit. So never quit your Thanksgiving prayers. However, realize it's all the same great spirit. One prayer technique that I made up that I really love to do, and I would love to share with you right now. And I'm thinking about some friends of mine that had a hash company here in Santa Cruz. Unfortunately, I think that it got destroyed by some, I'm not sure whether it was the mandates from the experiments and all of that, or, the mandates from the, the recreation cannabis law and all the fees. But I guess they went out of business. But I remember thinking of their face before I took a hit, and what a great, and then also, of course, food products and cannabis flowers and food and milk and all kinds of things, everything that I might consume, anything I might consume, because I believe in only consuming organic, natural things. In a farming hub like this, my prayer can be thinking of the person's face, and I give them love. I think of their face and say, thank you for them. And that, to me, is such a vastly more empowering style of so-called prayer. I don't even like to say that word, prayer, because it's like I'm praying on you, or giving a style of giving thanks than supplicating or giving my energy to some vicious blood-drinking god in the sky. No, I'm giving thanks to the divine in this farmer. And again, Santa Cruz, as well as Charleston and other places I've lived, I tend to gravitate toward places that have that type of opportunity if I don't know how to farm those things. Again, we're all co-interdependent, and if I don't know how to do it, if I don't know how to do have those skills, being able to have the prayer of thinking of their head before I consume it, it's a wonderful thing, man. So, and this is really how a Buddhist would approach the idea of thankfulness is, why should I give thanks when they're honoring the actual divine original creator in all beings by being respectful? This is why, for example, when there was an Earth 7.8 earthquake, I believe in Kathmandu a while back, a couple years ago or a decade ago, it's almost 1 million people, and there were no crimes. They did not have to call any sheriffs. No one looted or raped or stole anyone's crap. Because they were all raised Buddhist. They didn't want to do that. They knew it was themselves. They knew it would be stupid. And that's also why there are no sheriffs. So that made me want to visit there. What would a big city like that be like? Well, it has a lot of poverty, but not a lot of violence. So it is the inherent reality. With no separation, there is constant. Thanks is constant everywhere. No official God, no problem. No official reality, no problems. no official God, no slaves, no government, no masters, no problems. So give thanks to the one and all. If you have enjoyed this and you haven't done so already, make sure you click on the Irie subscribe button and follow me on Odyssey and/or Rumble if you want a deeper blood red pill for more nasty details about the truths of mind control operations on planet Earth and how you might escape those details. Check me out there, and if you feel so moved, you're welcome to throw some change or throw some Bitcoin in my tip jar. And you know what? This is another one of my videos in my spiritual kindergarten or first grade training skills for humanity that has often been duped into being spiritual morons, because spiritual morons and retards, who some of them believe in drinking blood, are at the so-called top of the fake-ass inverted hierarchy. So, again, give thanks to all beings as much as possible. Give thanks. I have another tradition I've established for myself is a shamanic style of giving thanks, where I actually often give thanks to all of the elements. Before I consume food or cannabis, I'll give thanks to the different elements. Sometimes before or after I defecate or pee. And basically what I'm saying here also is that for me, again, any spiritual path, I feel if it's real, one of their feet at least is going to have a firm foundation in a practice of thanksgiving, but not thanksgiving to the fake junior gods, but thanksgiving to the actual real divinity which surrounds us here. And as Yeshua said, when the disciples said, "Where is the kingdom of heaven? Will we see it when we die? Will we see it after we become enlightened?" And the Master Christ Yeshua said, it is the kingdom or queendom, I would say, of heaven is all around you if you have the eyes to see. And so in the awakening process, this dialogue of thanksgiving with all beings just becomes a normal, it's a normal thing. I mean, as I say, I hear it in the tones of these birds, even though they don't have free will. And so if they can be thankful all the time, if a finch can be thankful all the time, then why can't we? Well, again, we have to deal with the problems of our dark tinkerers. So, if you have the courage, my family, create a great day. Loving you, folks. Many blessings within the one love.